Hello, and welcome to You Should Hear This, a podcast for the everyday association professional. I'm Nick Estrada, your host. In today's episode, we talk about how you can approach a social media strategic plan. We all know it's not just about posting as much as you possibly can on every channel that's out there, but how do you identify the best place to be, the best content, and how to beat out every other group that's vying for your members' attention? We've got a great guest today to help answer some of these questions. Our guest is Kim Jones, partner and senior vice president at Willow Marketing. Willow Marketing is a full-service marketing agency based in Indianapolis. After 15 years at Willow, Kim has now worked on just about every type of marketing strategy that you can imagine, including rebranding, product service launches, non-dues revenue campaigns, membership recruitment and retention campaigns, fundraising, digital strategies, and more. She directs the day-to-day operations at Willow, oversees service delivery, and leads strategy on key accounts. She has extensive experience working with member associations, trade associations, and certification bodies. Welcome, Kim. Thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Nick. I'm so excited to be here talking to the lovely ISAE folks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we could not have picked maybe a better person to help talk about this. It seems you've done a few things around marketing.
Just a few. I mean, when you've been around for 15 years, you touch just about everything. And the beauty of working at an agency that gets to work with associations is you get to see lots of different types of projects and different types of strategies. So excited to be here and talk with you.
Yeah, and I think many of our association marketing professionals probably feel that way. They work on a lot of different campaigns. You know, they may represent a smaller staff, and so they're utilizing all the kinds of resources that they can get their hands on. And so I'm happy to chat with you a little bit about how we can maybe help them reframe thinking about some of their own communications.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's so much under that umbrella of marketing and communications that, and communications is involved in everything that associations do. So those marketing folks are touching a lot and seeing a lot and have to be adaptable and know a lot about a lot of things.
Not an easy task.
No.
So as we think about specifically social media, and I think that's kind of where we want to focus today's conversation. Again, marketing and comm is a pretty wide area, so let's kind of dig in here on that piece, because I think there's a lot of times our marketing folks get we'll just put that up on Facebook, right? Or just post that on LinkedIn. If we just had more likes and more followers, we'd be more successful. So as we think generally about social media communication right now, what kind of trends are we seeing just kind of in the comm space, but then maybe more specifically within the association world?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, 5 years ago, I would have said social media is what it is and what it sounds like. It's a social platform. It's intended for people to be social with their friends and their networks. And what we're seeing with social is that it is evolving to be so much more than just a social platform. In fact, the big trend that we're seeing right now with social media is that it's really becoming an entertainment platform. Mm-hmm. It's really evolving to be something that's more than just catching up with what your friends are doing, but it's more where people are spending their time consuming content. So they are seeking content that's going to make them smarter, make them better at their jobs, make them feel more informed about a particular topic of interest to them. For some people, it's just about feeling inspired and laughing and feeling entertained. We all do it. We probably all have our phones sitting with us while we've got the TV playing in the background, and we're probably scrolling through our social media, watching content, reading content, looking to be entertained while we're sitting in front of an entertainment device right there with us. So that's the big trend that we're seeing. I mean, Instagram has just recently made some big announcements about their focus as a platform. You've probably seen this, that Instagram Reels is a big focus for them now. They're trying to keep up with the TikToks of the world, now that they're owned by Facebook. They're trying to reach that younger audience. So that entertainment focus with Reels and selling. Instagram has a tab specifically where you can go and see things for sale and easily purchase from brands and influencers that you engage with. And I think that's the other trend that we're seeing a lot of is Influencers are huge. They are the new celebrity advertising advertising medium that we used to see. Brands are using influencers to create user-generated content for their brands. Gen Zers are following more influencers than they are brands. So they're looking to get information through those influencers, and they trust them. So we're seeing brands try to figure out, how do I use influencers? Who are the influencers? In the association space, that's something we talk to a lot of clients about, is who are the influencers in your space? Are there particular folks who are well respected in the industry, have large followings on social media, are already talking about the type of content that's really relevant to your members, that they could add some context from their perspective for your brand? So yeah, I think those are some of the major trends that we're seeing in social. I think it's evolving to become a much different platform than what it launched to be, and only to be social. So
yeah, so it sounds like it's something that has evolved and will continue to, right? So what even it looks like today is probably not what it's going to look like in a year from now.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's even platforms today that weren't here before the pandemic, or didn't have as much of a user base. The TikToks, and now Clubhouse is a big one that probably a lot of associations are exploring as, is this a platform that we should be looking into? So yeah, new platforms are going to come about. I think with augmented reality and all those things, who knows what the future is going to look like with some of those tools.
Yeah. So with all of these channels, all of these options that we kind of have at our disposals, how do we keep up as association professionals with the expectations of our clients, our members, our consumers, depending how you want to call them, right? Because I think they're all of those things at the same time. But how do we meet their expectations when we compare ourselves to the big brands that are out there, right? I think we see the Nikes, the Google, the Best Buys, all those kinds of brands that we would purchase from. We see their incredible social media,
right?
And our members, I think, expect us to have the same thing. So how do we keep up with that in general?
Yeah, Nick, that's a great question, and such a hard challenge for organizations that have small staffs, and this is one of about 20 things on your daily list of things to think about. So it's definitely a challenge. Our advice is always that less is really more here. I mean, you don't need to be on every platform. You don't need to be posting multiple times a day. It's more about making an impact. So the important thing is to truly understand who your target audiences are, those members, those prospective members, those other key stakeholders for your association, and understand where they're spending their time, what type of content they're seeking, what their pain points are. That's really the most important thing to understand, so that you can build a strategy that's going to have you spending your time and effort and energy where it's going to make an impact. It's going to make a difference. It's going to push that needle. It's going to, do the work that you need it to do for you. So that's always my advice, is to, if you've got one platform and you do one platform really well, that's what you should do. And if that's where your membership is, start there. I think the other thing we've seen a lot of success with associations is to engage the membership as a part of helping you create content. We talked a little bit about influencers, but one success story that I have is we work with the Board of Certification for Emergency Nursing. So they're the certifying body for emergency nurses. And they launched Instagram 2 years ago, and we're struggling to just come up with fresh new content that would be, a little bit different than what they're posting on Facebook or LinkedIn. So we created what we call the BC and Insta Crew. And we recruited 12 certified nurses who were already posting about emergency nursing certification, or studying for exams, or talking about the value of continuous learning in the field of emergency nursing. People that were already out there, talking about it, had large followings. And we recruited them for free to come help produce content for us. We sent them some goodies. We sent them some content we'd love them to talk about. And that thing has just blown up, that we've been doing it now for 2 years. We've had several different rounds of who those Instacrew folks are. And it's just been, a way to create content that doesn't require staff to always do that. So I think that's one way that you can engage your membership in helping you. They're going to know the type of content too that other members are going to be seeking. So they can be a really helpful resource for that.
In the example you're giving, how does a staff member, I guess maybe let go of some of that control around that? I think many of our marketing professionals, they protect the brand, right? That's what they're there for. That, and there's a reason for that, right? We don't want them to stray too far from that, because the association has likely spent some time to build that voice and that knowledge within the membership of who they stand for. So how do you use that Instacrew, but also stay true to the brand through some of that control?
Yeah, that's a great thing to consider. I think it's really important to onboard your folks that you're going to have doing some of that content for you, so that they know the brand, they know the brand voice, they know keywords that are important for you to use. They know what your key objectives are with your social media strategy. So, if it's getting more nurses certified, or if it's creating awareness for more courses that you're offering online, whatever those initiatives are, I think it's just really important to make sure folks are informed about what you're wanting this social media efforts to do, while at the same time giving them a little bit of flexibility to say it in their own way. I do think, something we learned with BC and Instacrew, we tried to start out and give them kind of the content we wanted them to post about. And it just felt like, these 12 people were all saying the same thing. Didn't feel authentic. So we learned from that. We pivoted. We said, okay, we're just going to tell you what we want you to talk about over the course of the next couple months. You take and talk about it in a way that's relevant and real in the world that you live in. We want to see photos from your experience, flying on a helicopter to the scene of an accident, and how your certification has helped you be prepared for that moment. That means so much more than, us writing a script for you to say that. So I do think just training them and onboarding them, monitoring what they're doing, while at the same time giving them some flexibility to speak on your behalf.
Fantastic. So almost just kind of like, I always like to make analogies to help me understand some of these things. So it's almost like going bowling with the bumper, the bumper things in, right? So I'm still going to ultimately get to the end of the lane, but there's something there to help guide me to get me down there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. It sounds like we're kind of, again, going down this, using that group as the influencer there. So I'm curious, the reason we want to use them is because it seems like our consumers trust influencers more than they do us, right? But at some level, I'm also the person who works for the association every single day. So why, or where do you think it comes from in terms of this trust that's automatically given to the influencer or the other peer member that might be doing some of these things?
Yeah. I think it's a bit of a psychology with this Gen Z generation that really just has grown up with a device in their hand, from the very beginning of their young lives, and, have just naturally trusted anything and everything that they find on the internet, which is somewhat scary for sure. Those of us that are not Gen Zers are like, but I think there's a bit of that. It's just they've grown up with that. They follow these influencers that, use hashtags for, areas of topics of interest for them. And they just kind of get into feeling like they're a part of those people's lives. So I think that's, what influencers can bring to the table. I think in member associations, it's really that user generated content that it's real. yes, you might work for the association, but are you actually someone that's, worked in the profession or been in the same position as those other members? So I think hearing from someone that you truly see as a peer, or someone you respect, just makes a difference. We all know that people want to learn from their peers. And so it's just a way to be able to live that out through social. Now, I don't think all of your content should come from influencers. Certainly, the brand has to have its own content as well. But I think you can intermix content from influencers or members. We can just call them, really engaged members, to make the content also just have that relevancy to it.
In that balance that you're talking about between association branded or kind of sponsored content and the influencer member content, what's that balance look like, you think, with really successful groups?
Yeah, I still think the brand should lead. I think, ultimately it's important that, people associate the content that you're putting out there, the blogs, the helpful tools and resources, the events, the webinars, all those things. We still want them to associate those with our brand. So it's really important that drives things. So, if I had to give it a breakdown of percentage, 75% brand, 25%, influencer or member generated content. But, that's probably going to be different based on different associations and what your member breakdown looks like and those kinds of things. But I do think it's important that the brand be represented there at all times.
Yeah, fantastic. One other thing you brought up in your last answer that I'm just generally intrigued by are hashtags. So I just feel like sometimes it's people just add, right? It's because I think when you use it, especially Instagram, maybe for personal use, and I think it's got to start probably on Twitter more so than anything, yep. But it kind of became just add whatever stream of consciousness word that I think even sort of relates to the post that I'm making. But is there a good way to approach that as a strategy for an association?
Absolutely. Yes, you're absolutely right. Hashtags evolved from Twitter, where they were actually really useful because you could follow a stream of a topic. Which is really what they are. They're basically a good way to search social media. So you think of them as the Google of the social platforms. And then they evolved to people being silly and funny and just trying to make hashtags funny. But I think where they have come to is that, they really are helpful for someone who's interested in a particular topic to be able to follow people who are also talking about that same topic. So we always work with all of our clients to really hone in on what are those key hashtags that are related to your industry, either ones that, you're able to provide good, helpful content about, or keywords that the industry is known for, keywords that people in your membership are going to be seeking content about, and make sure that you're tagging all of your posts with that. So we kind of have like a set. Any post should have these hashtags with it. And then if we post something about this, particular subject within our industry, we add this hashtag. So I think doing a bit of research, there are tools out there that allow you to see what the followings are of those hashtags, how often they're used, what engagement looks like with those hashtags. So doing a bit of that research up front is helpful. But then you can kind of build your set list, and then you just add those accordingly.
I really like that strategy of kind of that. It's almost like boilerplate, right? Like this is what we put, and then we can customize it to the specific need that we might have for the post.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to grow membership too, to reach some non-members and new prospective members that maybe haven't heard of you or don't know the relevant content that you can provide. If you're showing up on hashtags that they're following, and not just showing up by pushing your own content, but actually engaging in the conversation with that hashtag. So, that you also as an organization follow that hashtag. And as you see other people posting really great content about that hashtag, you're commenting, you're saying, wow, that was a great article, or love that bit of advice, or, that you're engaging in the conversation as well. Again, that's what social media was started as a platform for engagement, not just one-way communication. So I think that's the other great thing that I think associations could do better at, is not just posting and saying, okay, great, check that off my list, I got those posts done for the month. But also finding a way to engage in the conversation. And even if that's a couple times a week, to just, comment on some posts that are happening in the space where you want to be known for.
And in that moment, is it responding as the association brand, or is it responding as the personal, is it my personal LinkedIn, or is it the association LinkedIn that I'm responding from?
Yeah, I think there's value in both. I think anything where, you're trying to recruit some new members, associating that with the association brand is really important. So they start to recognize, like, oh, this association is involved. They're taking part here. But I think there's also, people want to be connected to people. So if they can start to see both the brand association name and a person or people associated with that association, I think that just only goes to help build and strengthen the brand.
So you mentioned earlier, right, that there are new platforms that weren't even here a year ago. So Clubhouse as an example. And I got an invite to that finally, and I've tried to explore it. And I don't know if this is just me starting to get old or not, but I was like, I don't really get this. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. Because I wanted to explore it, right, for, okay, would I potentially want one of my associations to use this platform in some way? So as we explore all these new platforms that are out there, what are some of the key metrics that an association or the marketing professional needs to be thinking about before we just jump on board with whatever that new platform is?
Yeah. I think the most important thing to do is to really truly understand who your target audience is and where they're spending their time currently, where they're getting information from socially for their profession or for, their career currently, that you can be most helpful. And I think the important thing with that is we all have our perceptions. A common saying at Willow is, association staff and board are inside the jar of the association's brand. But getting outside the jar and seeing the perspective of the label from your members is super important. So just like that, it's really important to get out there and understand from your members where they're spending time, where they want to receive information from you. So surveying them, asking them what platforms they're on, what type of content, how often they want to hear from you, how they use different social platforms. I think those are all things that will help you make a more informed decision than to just say, well, I'm personally on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, so those are probably the three we should be on. And Twitter is so annoying, I can't do Twitter. You really do need to get the perspective of your membership to understand where you should be. And, then each platform has a little bit different of a focus, a little bit of a different delivery. Facebook's more friends and family and, kind of general content sharing. Instagram, as I talked about earlier, is shifting more into this entertainment platform. Twitter is quick news, behind the scenes information, quick and timely. So, understanding what's going to fit with the type of content and information that you have to share also is important. If you can't keep up with Twitter and you're only posting once a week there, it's probably not worth it. You're probably not going to see a lot of engagement there. So I think understanding where your audience is first and foremost the most important thing, the type of content that they're wanting, the type of content you can provide. And then ultimately, you've got to look at the KPIs that actually matter. Like if you get more likes, does that actually increase your membership? Is that driving non-dues revenue for you? Is that, what are you looking for social to help you accomplish as an association? And, back it out from there. If you're wanting to drive more non-dues revenue to your webinars or, conference attendees or those kinds of things. Let's figure out where it makes most sense for us to actually be to accomplish that.
I think that is the best question we've come up with so far today. What is social trying to accomplish for your association? Because I think if we can't even answer that question, we really got to restart this strategy, right? Because if, to your point, I can't even say if it's to get me more members or to increase my sponsorship levels or my non-dues revenue or whatever is out there, if I can't even communicate that, then the whole strategy, I think, at the very beginning is flawed.
Right. You're absolutely right. Social is just another, it's another piece under that whole marketing umbrella. And so it's got to align up to the bigger picture of what your organization is trying to accomplish. Otherwise, you're just checking a box because everyone else does social. And so you should probably do social too. Mm-hmm. It's got to work for you. Otherwise, you shouldn't be spending your time and effort and energy. I mean, you've only got so much of it within an association. So it's got to work for you to drive results.
And that's back to your kind of less is more concept, right? So if we can do one platform really well, that might be the best option then for us to just stay on that platform.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that conversation makes a lot of sense for the association professionals around the table, right? We can say, hey, we can't spend time doing all that. What are maybe some strategies that you would recommend to approach a board, or a board member? Obviously, we're not like for-profit companies in many respects, but we have a board member who suddenly says, hey, I heard about this Clubhouse thing. I want us on it now. Mm-hmm. How do we approach that conversation with them?
Yes, I have been a part of many of those conversations where a board member says, why aren't we on Instagram? It's my favorite platform. And I think it all comes back to that research. You've got to make sure that you can back that decision, that it fits with your strategy, that your members are actually going to be there, that it's actually going to drive results for you. And that you can actually fulfill the time and commitment that it takes to run that. Because it's not a quick thing to be able to, create and post content that takes time and energy. So I always, encourage our clients who get that kind of feedback from boards is, well, let's do our research. Let's, go back to our members. Let's look at the trends, and let's go see if they're right. Like, should we be there? And go back and make the case either way to say, you're right. That's actually how BCEN got on Instagram, was they had the board saying our, certification candidates are younger and younger. We've got to be where they are. And, as a marketing team, they were kind of like, oh man, we're already busy. How do we add another social platform? And we said, well, maybe we just need to scale down a little bit of our Facebook, work and scale up our Instagram. But we did take the time to do our due diligence to actually make sure that platform made sense for us. And I think that's the most important thing I can encourage association folks to do, is to just do their research and go back and present their case to the board backed by data. Hopefully boards will respect that you've taken the time to do that research and make an educated and informed decision about it.
As we start to think about the kinds of messages that we send on the different platforms, how do you recommend segmenting our membership? I think when we think about emails, right, it's like really easy to say, I want to send this email message to list A and not list B, or I want to send it to list A, and if they click this link, I want them to go to, A.1 or A.2. How do we start to segment our, and really I think on the channels, right, it's more the followers, right? How do we segment the messages that we're sending there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's going to take a little bit of that research. It goes back to learning a bit from who your followers even are, and making sure you have a good understanding of who is following you on Instagram versus who's following you on LinkedIn, and what type of content they are engaging with or aren't engaging with. We did some association research here recently where we did some attitudinal segmentation. You've probably heard Brad Gillum, our owner, speak about that. And he found that the folks that were following social the most closely were those that we called the change seekers and the leaders. And those folks are the ones that are most likely from our research to be engaged with social content. And so knowing that, a little bit more that the change seekers and the leaders, we know some things about those types of people and what kind of content they're looking for. We can do some A/B testing for our post and see what does get more engagement, what drives people to click through and actually sign up to attend a webinar, what drives someone to take on a volunteer role. So I do think research, both specifically to your association, is helpful. I've now said research like 10 times because I definitely think, even some simple research, it doesn't have to be this big over the top research campaigns that you have to do, but just understanding and then using industry research that's available, like the attitudinal segmentation survey that we've done. That can help people just be more informed about the type of content people are looking for on those different platforms.
Yeah, and I highly encourage listeners to reach out to Willow if you all are willing to share that content with them. That attitudinal research, I sat in a session recently about that, and it was just very cool to listen to. I think the neatest part of it was that each of the attitudes that you're providing, right, existed every age range. And I think that kind of throws in the face of what some folks are saying, right? Like, oh, those millennials and those Gen Z kids, they don't do this. They don't even read emails. They're only on this. But I think that thinking about it from that attitudinal perspective can help shift. And I know you may have said research a lot, but I think it's extremely important. Data-driven decision-making is helpful. And I think to even my question of the board, right, being able to go back to them and say, here's why we don't post that way anymore, because it didn't work. When we changed our post to this instead, we got those webinar registrations, we got sponsorship purchases, right? So really being able to back that up. But yeah, definitely listeners, check out that attitudinal survey. I was hoping you were going to bring it up selfishly, because it is a really fantastic research.
Yeah, happy to share with anyone. We've got it posted on our website, and we're actually doing a new survey that we're releasing at ASAE here in a couple weeks for 2021. So get some of their post-pandemic attitudes, and we're also learning about opinions towards diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion, and how folks are expecting associations to respond to that too. So definitely some good stuff there.
Awesome. Thank you, Kim. Any other kind of just general tips, maybe? Some of the things, obviously, that you've learned over the last 15 years in managing some of the communications or social media strategy that, if a current marketing professional did this one thing, right, it would change their workload, their work experience.
Yeah, let's see. Maybe a couple of things we haven't talked about yet. Use the resources that are out there that can help streamline the amount of time and effort and energy you have to spend on social. Excuse me. The hard part is actually like putting the content together. The scheduling and all of that stuff shouldn't be the hard part. So use a tool like Hootsuite or Sprout Social. Later is a new one that we've started using. So using those tools, I think when you're down to a couple people on a team in charge of doing this, make use of those. I think repurposing content. We all spend a lot of time and effort and energy to put together great content for our members, whether that be blogs or white papers or webinars. Don't just use that one time. If you post a webinar, that can be used 5 or 6, 7, 8 more times. It can be little pieces of nuggets of content that you pull out and post on social. It could be a white paper. You could transcribe that video and put it on your website as a blog. So I think people sometimes feel like they have to constantly be coming up with new, fresh content, and that every follower sees every post that you post. That is not true. So
it's interesting you say that. I had a member actually, this was 3 months ago maybe, and he said, I didn't see the email, I didn't see the Facebook, but I saw that LinkedIn message that said there was an event tomorrow and I signed up, but I'm a little frustrated that I didn't see it on all those other places. And I responded, well, that's why we post it in all those places, right? Because we know our members are busy, and you're not going to see every post.
No, they're not going to see it partly on their own end and partly because the algorithm's just not going to show it to them all the time either. So you may post the same blog, 3 times over a year with different headlines, different, calls to action. And, that same user may have seen all 3 of those, but you just didn't draw them in on that one. So I think knowing associations have limited time and resources, repurposing content, and as you produce a piece of content, thinking about all the ways that you could repurpose that for different ways that it could go on social, I think is one time-saving hack that I would encourage. We didn't talk much about the analytics that are available with social platforms, but I think that's an area that many of the social platforms are doing much better for brands to have a better understanding of the analytics of their social following. I think it's also important to use things like UTMs so that you can actually understand if the content that you are posting on social is driving those KPIs, the traffic and the conversions that you're looking for.
Can you tell me what a UTM is?
Yeah, and that's so if you have a campaign, say that you're doing a member recruitment campaign, and you're going to use lots of different communication mediums to try to recruit someone. So you're going to send them some emails, you might send them a printed piece, you might have a webinar, and you're going to do social posts. So those will all be kind of lumped into a campaign. You might not know right now where those new members came from. Did they hear from you on the printed piece? Did they listen to the webinar? The UTM allows you to kind of lump a campaign in and then specify which medium they got there from. So you can build a UTM with a campaign and then a specific medium. So it's a way to kind of set that up. Google allows you to do that for free and go to their kind of platform and just kind of build your UTM structure. And then you can monitor on the back end of it and see which of these UTMs, which of these, the one that has, the webinar, or the one that has the social Facebook posts, or the paid Facebook campaign. And then you can see which one's driving conversions for you, which one's ultimately working, so that the next time you go and do a membership recruitment campaign, that paid Facebook ads really worked last time. So maybe we don't need to do a webinar because that didn't drive any traffic for us. So let's focus more of our efforts here. So I think UTMs are something that are underutilized right now with social and just overall campaigns and associations. So I think that's something that's free, easy for people to set up, and it just gives you a lot of data on the back end that makes you more informed for how to spend your time and resources.
That's great. One final question for you. And I always like to think about this for a lot of association, any kind of sector or kind of vertical, but what can we be learning from the for-profit world right now? What are the things that we can pull from what they're doing? Again, maybe not at the same scale, but what can we kind of pull and replicate on our side?
Yeah, I think the big brands and even not big brands, but the brands that do social really well have captured how to make social fit with their brand persona, their brand personality. So it just, when you see a post from a brand that does social really well to tie it back to their brand, you just feel that feel. I mean, if you follow Disney, for example, Disney has the brand archetype of being a magician brand. If every time you experience anything with Disney, you go on site, you see a commercial, you watch a movie that's Disney, it's magical. Same thing with their social content. It's magical. It's almost, makes you feel like you're there experiencing the magic of Disney. So I think that's what big brands do really well, is they make their social fit with their brand voice and personality, and it gives you that experience that they want you to experience with their brand. And so I think that's something that associations can certainly learn from is, who is our brand personality and who's our brand archetype? What do we want people to feel and think when they see a social post from our brand? And is the way that we're doing that, doing that? And it's not just the images or the videos that we post, it's the tone and, colors and all those things that'll make people feel the way you want them to feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is always interesting. I think I've referred to it as the voice of the association, right? You want to be able to know that that's a consistent feel. Mm-hmm. And you're right. I think when I think about some of the big brands that are out there, that there's some that are on social that I just come to expect to know this is how they're going to talk about that thing that they're posting about. Yeah.
Or you just see 1 second of a video and it's a Target video. Mm-hmm. Like you just, it's the music they use, it's the, consistency in brand elements. And I think that's something that is doable for associations, just having a good sense of what you want every single social interaction to make, how you want it to make someone feel.
Absolutely. Well, Kim, thank you for spending some time with me today. This was very insightful for me, and I don't even work in marketing, but I think from a membership perspective, even this provides just a lot of really good things to think about. As our listeners may look to get some more information, how can they find you on the social platforms? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah. I am on them all, just keeping and monitoring them. I sometimes just creep on, TikTok and Snapchat. I don't actually engage there, but LinkedIn is definitely best place to reach me professionally. And always feel free to email me, just kim@willowmarketing.com. Love to talk about social and how associations can make that work hard for them to actually, make some of their goals come to life through social.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode of You Should Hear This. If you have any questions you'd like answered or future topics you'd like us to explore, please send us an email at info@isae.org.